Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers preliminary alcohol screening, field sobriety tests, and driving while intoxicated, and is brought to us by the City of Newton. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. Shortly after midnight on August 28, 2022, Officer Nathan Winters and Lieutenant Christopher Wing of the Newton Police Department pulled over 19-year-old college football player Taven Galanakis in Newton, Iowa for driving with his high-beam headlights on. The interaction that followed was captured on Officer Winters' body camera.
Hi there.
How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
Good.
My name's Officer Winters with the Newton Police Department. The reason I pulled you over is because you have your bright lights on.
Yeah, I have a headlight out, so I just keep my brights on.
Okay, well that's not legal.
Oh, it isn't?
No.
Yeah, I turn when a car comes by, I turn them off, but like...
Well, you didn't with me.
You're a while back.
It has to be within 500 feet.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
And you're not supposed to have your brights on in the city limits.
My fault.
You got your license, registration, insurance with you?
Yeah, I got you.
Is this your car?
Yeah.
Okay. Where are you headed?
Back home. Hold on 1 second.
Where are you coming from?
Friend's house.
Okay. Anything to drink over there?
Nope. Need one of these right here?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good start. That's the registration. Okay. I'll take this first one here.
Alright.
You got your insurance?
Yeah, I got you. Would it be that white card?
Could be. That's one that expired in 21.
I got the email version.
Alright, that'll work. I'm gonna have you hop out with me, okay?
Cool.
We're gonna go back here, okay?
Cool.
You don't have anything on you? No bombs, guns, drugs?
No bombs or no drugs.
Okay, let's go back here. I'm gonna have you have a seat in my passenger seat, okay?
Awesome.
Where are you coming from?
Back by, his name is Creighton. It's a friend's house.
Okay. What are you doing at Creighton's house?
We were just hanging out. Just got back from college.
Okay.
Go to William Penn.
Okay. You play football up there?
Yes, sir.
How much have you had to drink tonight?
None.
What do you mean none?
I had nothing to drink.
Okay. Why would your eyes be watery and bloodshot?
You want to blow me real quick?
I don't want to blow you.
Pause. I got contacts. I've had nothing to drink.
Okay. So your movements in the car with you fumbling over the registration kind of say otherwise. And so does the odor of alcohol coming from your person.
Great, let's do a test and
We'll get to the test.
I can't wait. Can I record it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Officer Winters thinks I'm drinking tonight. We're about to do a test and he's going to find out I had nothing to drink. He's going to look stupid.
Alright, so let's go up on the sidewalk here and I'll talk with you up there, okay?
Cool.
Mr. Galanakis asks to take a breathalyzer test, but Officer Winters asks him to step outside the vehicle to complete field sobriety testing first. In general, there are two types of breathalyzers that police officers use to test potentially intoxicated drivers. These include roadside preliminary breath tests, or PBTs, using preliminary alcohol screening, or PASS devices, and the chemical breath tests administered using larger and more accurate breathalyzer machines at police stations, often after a DUI arrest is made. According to Section 321J.5 of the Iowa Code, when a peace officer has reasonable grounds to believe that a motor vehicle operator has operated a motor vehicle while intoxicated, the officer may request that the operator provide a sample of the operator's breath for a preliminary screening test. However, under Iowa law, drivers are not required to submit to PBTs, and an individual may refuse to blow, even if the officer has reasonable grounds to believe that they are driving under the influence. In contrast, Section 321J.6 of the Iowa Code, which is known as the state's implied consent law, states that a person who operates a motor vehicle under circumstances which give reasonable grounds to believe that the person has been operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated, quote, is deemed to have given consent to the withdrawal of specimens of the person's blood, breath, or urine, and to a chemical test or tests of the specimens for the purpose of determining the alcohol concentration or presence of a controlled substance or other drugs in certain situations. And under Section 321J.9 of the Iowa Code, drivers who refuse chemical testing when the implied consent statute applies can have their driver's licenses revoked for a year or more. An individual is considered to have consented to chemical testing for the purposes of this statute if they have been lawfully arrested for DUI, refused to take a PBT, failed a PBT, or if, quote, the preliminary breath screening test was administered and it indicated an alcohol concentration less than the level prohibited, and the peace officer has reasonable grounds to believe that the person was under the influence of a controlled substance, a drug other than alcohol, or a combination of alcohol and another drug. We will discuss whether Officer Winters had reasonable grounds to believe that Mr. Galanakis was driving under the influence later in this episode, but for now, it should be noted that although it may seem like Officer Winters unnecessarily delayed the traffic stop by refusing to administer a breathalyzer when Mr. Galanakis requested one, it is likely that he did so in order to ensure that the testing produced accurate results. While police station breathalyzers typically have safeguards to prevent false positives, interference from residual mouth alcohol and other breath contaminants can artificially inflate a roadside PBT reading, resulting in a test result that is higher than the driver's actual blood alcohol concentration. For this reason, officers are trained to observe drivers for 15 to 20 minutes before using a pass device to confirm that they do not consume any alcohol or other products that contain alcohol, such as cough syrup, mouthwash, or breath spray, and ensure that the PBT results are not contaminated. This 15-minute rule is likely the reason that Officer Winters did not immediately give Mr. Galanakis a PBT when he asked to take one, and instead requested that he perform field sobriety tests.
You have contacts in, you said?
Not right now.
Did you take them out?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm allergic to dogs. My eyes get dried up and watery, so I took them out.
Are you supposed to have them in when you drive?
No.
Okay. I'm going to have you stand with your heels and toes together, with your arms down to your side. I'm going to check your eyes.
Cool.
Okay, what I want you to do is follow my finger with your eyes and your eyes only, and do not move your head, okay? Can you see my finger clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
How many more we got?
This test is about 2 minutes long. Are you comfortable in walking in the shoes you got on?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so I want you to put your left foot on the line. Take your right foot, put it in front of your left foot, with the heel of your right foot touching the toe of your left foot, just like this, okay? So from this position, you're going to take 9 heel-to-toe steps, turn and take 9 heel-to-toe steps back.
Wait, turn back around?
2, 3, just like I did. Count your steps out loud, and once you've started walking, do not stop until you've completed the test, okay? You may begin.
Gotcha. Let's do the breath now. You 2 for 2.
Well, sir, I don't believe you are 2 for 2. How many steps did I say to take?
Like 8 or 9?
I said 9. Why'd you take 14 and then 15?
I thought you were going to tell me when to turn.
I said to count your steps out loud.
Oh, my fault.
So the next test, when I say begin, I want
How many false accusations you got?
0.
It's about to be your first.
What I want you to do when I say begin is raise either your left or your right foot, whichever one you want, and raise it approximately 6 inches off the ground and keep it parallel to the ground, okay? Why are you shaking so much?
It's freezing, man. Look at you, you got all these clothes on, and I got shorts on and it's raining. And you false accusing me, so of course I'm going to be a little nervous.
I wear shorts when it's 30 below.
Congratulations.
If you don't have any questions, you may begin.
It's ridiculous.
Okay, you can relax. I got one more test for you.
Give me a little blow.
I will.
Little zeros.
I will here in a minute. A couple more tests here.
Let's blow real quick. Stop doing all these damn tests. Let's blow. Let's get to business.
Has it been 15 minutes
I
yet?
used to love new cops. I used to love them. Never give me no problems. Till now. My beams were on because I have a taillight out. Not my taillight. One of the bulbs up front is out. That's why I pulled them up.
Okay.
I didn't know it was illegal.
Let's go to the front of the car here.
Officer Winters leads Mr. Galanakis through a series of field sobriety tests, some of which have been validated by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, and some which have not. As the Court of Appeals of Iowa explained in the 2002 case of State v. Marks, quote, "When an officer has reasonable cause to believe a driver is operating while intoxicated, a suspect may be briefly detained, asked to perform field sobriety tests, and comply with other investigatory requests without violating the suspect's Fourth Amendment rights. However, it is important to note that, as with preliminary breath tests, Iowa drivers are not required to submit to field sobriety testing, and an individual may refuse to participate. When administering the tests on Mr. Galanakis, Officer Winters began by performing the so-called horizontal gaze nystagmus, or HGN test, which is one of the 3 standardized field sobriety tests developed by the NHTSA. During an HGN test, the officer requests the subject to follow the motion of a small stimulus, such as the tip of a pen or pen light, using only their eyes, and observes their eyes for signs of an involuntary jerking known as nystagmus, which becomes more prominent as an individual's BAC increases. After the HGN test, Officer Winters had Mr. Galanakis perform the 2 other standardized field sobriety tests, the walk and turn test and the one-leg stand test. These 2 tests are known as divided attention tests because they require the subject to concentrate on mental tasks and physical tasks at the same same time. The walk and turn test requires the subject to walk heel to toe for 9 steps, turn around, and take 9 heel to toe steps back to their starting location while counting their steps out loud and looking at their feet. According to the NHTSA, officers should look for 8 clues when conducting this assessment, and note if the subject cannot keep balance while listening to the instructions, starts too soon, stops while walking, does not touch heel to toe, steps off the line, uses arms to balance, makes an improper turn, or takes an incorrect number of steps. On the other hand, the one-leg stand test requires the subject to stand on one leg for 30 seconds while counting out loud. The NHTSA instructs officers to look for 4 clues during this test: swaying while balancing, using arms to balance, hopping, and putting the foot down. After completing the standardized field sobriety tests, Officer Winters had Mr. Galanakis perform 2 additional field sobriety tests before completing his assessment. Now, although Mr. Galanakis took too many steps during the walk and turn test and failed to count his steps out loud, NHTSA guidelines state that an individual should be classified as over the legal limit if they fail 2 or more clues for this test, and failing to count out loud is not an identified clue. Likewise, while he did not count out loud during the one-leg stand test, failure to count out loud is not a clue for that assessment either.
Let's do this low. 0-0. Ready for it?
All right, what I want you to do is make a tight seal around this and blow outwards like you're blowing up a balloon, okay?
Cool.
All right.
You ready?
Yep. Okay, you can relax. So I'm going to read you Miranda, okay? Right now you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you before any question, okay?
Yes, sir.
When's the last time we smoked weed?
I do not remember that.
Tonight?
No.
Okay, well I think it's tonight.
I blew zeros, so now you're trying to think I smoke weed. Is he allowed to do that?
Yes, he is.
So I blow zeros and you suspect drugs now. I blow zeros so you think I'm on drugs. That's ridiculous. I'm being honest.
You smoked some weed at your friend's house?
No.
You hit a pin?
Nope.
Why is your field sobriety so poor? And why are you so lethargic and slow moving and speaking with a slurred speech? And your eyes are watery and your eyes are bloodshot.
You know why they're watery? Probably because we're in rain right now. I play college football, I told you that. We get tested every Friday.
I think you're under the influence.
You think I'm impaired?
Yes.
Well, I'm not.
Do you want to do a drug recognition evaluation or a drug influence evaluation?
What's that?
There's an officer who checks your blood pressure, does a whole bunch of tests.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Here's my situation. I stopped this guy for having his brights on. He fumbles around with his registration 3, 4, 5 times. He bombed sobriety. I asked him, I read him Miranda, PBT 000. I said, when's the last time we smoked weed? And he hesitated for a long period of time and said, I honestly can't remember. He says he'll do an evaluation, but he's kind of a smart. All right, that's what we'll do then. Okay, but I obviously have enough to charge him with the sobriety. So I spoke with the drug recognition expert, and he said that he's willing to do a drug influence evaluation on you. We would have to go up to the PD.
Right now?
Yep.
I don't want to do that right now.
You don't want to do it right now?
No.
Why not?
Because you had me out in this damn rain.
We would go to the PD where it's
Well, I
dry.
don't want to do that. I don't want to do that now. I want to go home. You wasted my time.
Turn around, put your hands behind your back. Right now you're being placed under arrest for operating while intoxicated, okay?
Sir, I'm not intoxicated. I blew zeros.
You can be under the influence of a narcotic. Nothing else on you?
It's my inhaler, man.
I see that.
Drugs.
Okay. Let's go back here.
You wait till my mom comes, though?
Nope. You're over 18.
Officer Winters places Mr. Galanakis under arrest for operating a vehicle while intoxicated, and when Mr. Galanakis reminds him that he blew a 0.0 on the breathalyzer, Officer Winters argues that he could be under the influence of a narcotic. According to Section 321J.2 of the Iowa Code, an individual commits the offense of operating while intoxicated if the person operates a motor vehicle while under the influence of an alcoholic beverage or other drug or a combination of such substance, while having an alcohol concentration of 0.08 or more, or while any amount of a controlled substance is present in the person as measured in the person's blood or urine. Therefore, a driver can be arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs even if their blood alcohol concentration is less than 0.08. In the 2004 case of State versus Truesdell, the Supreme Court of Iowa explained that for the purposes of this statute, quote, a person is under the influence when the consumption of alcohol affects the person's reasoning or mental ability, impairs a person's judgment, visibly excites a person's emotions, or causes a person to lose control of bodily actions. Throughout the encounter, Officer Winters cited several factors to support his suspicion that Mr. Galanakis was under the influence, including allegations that he fumbled with paperwork when he was first pulled over, smelled like alcohol, slurred his speech, had bloodshot eyes, and performed poorly during field sobriety testing. Although these factors could certainly support a finding of probable cause for an arrest, in this instance, it is likely that a judge's decision would turn on their assessment of Officer Winters' credibility and whether or not they believed his allegations about Mr. Galanakis' appearance and behavior. Notably, the fact that Officer Winters originally claimed to smell an odor of alcohol emanating from Mr. Galanakis' person is strongly undermined by the fact that he later blew a 0.0. And although it is possible that Officer Winters could have smelled alcohol that came into contact with his clothing at his friend's house, in my opinion, this allegation significantly undermines Officer Winters' credibility. Additionally, the body camera footage does not appear to show Mr. Galanakis slurring his speech, having bloodshot eyes, or demonstrating any physical impairment when searching for his registration and insurance documents. And while Officer Winters may have been able to see things better in person, the body camera footage at the very least calls his characterizations into question.
So you don't want to do the drug recognition evaluation?
We can do it.
So when we used weed last?
It's honestly been so long, I can't remember. I've done it before, but it's been a really long time.
Why wouldn't you tell me that in the field?
Because I stopped doing that. It does nothing good for me.
Then why is your field sobriety so bad?
It wasn't even bad. I was doing good.
Alright, I'm going to read the implied consent advisory to you. Just follow along with me as I read it to you out loud.
After the arrest, the officers transported Mr. Galanakis to the Newton police station, where he was held in a detention room. On Officer Winters' request, Mr. Galanakis agreed to submit to a drug recognition test and a urine test, and Officer Schinkel, a drug recognition expert with the Newton Police Department, conducted a second round of field sobriety tests and several physical tests, including a blood pressure test. Based on the results of these tests, Officer Schinkel concluded shortly after 2 a.m. that Mr. Galanakis was not intoxicated, and that he was not showing any signs of drug or alcohol use, and Mr. Galanakis was released without any charges being filed. After the encounter, Mr. Galanakis repeatedly posted about his experience on social media, and later shared an edited compilation of the body camera footage. Newton Mayor Mike Hansen issued a statement explaining that he, the city administrator, the police chief, command staff, and city attorney reviewed the incident and determined that the stop, quote, was handled according to police departmental policy and according to the law. Instead, the mayor's statement placed the blame on Mr. Galanakis for failing to operate his vehicle in accordance with the law and for failing to listen to the officer's requests. On January 5th, 2023, Mr. Galanakis filed a lawsuit against the city and the officers involved, alleging false arrest, civil rights violations, and negligent supervision and training. The lawsuit was removed to federal court on February 2nd, and on February 9th, Officer Winters and Lieutenant Wing filed counterclaims against Mr. Galanakis for making and publishing written and oral defamatory statements, making false complaints, and intentionally inflicting emotional distress. Mr. Galanakis has filed a motion to dismiss the counterclaims, and as of the date of writing this episode, both the counterclaims and the underlying lawsuit are still pending. Overall, Officer Winters and Lieutenant Wing get an F. Because although they mostly maintained a professional demeanor throughout the encounter and demonstrated a reasonable understanding of DUI testing procedures, they ultimately arrested a driver who was not impaired based on dubious evidence after he blew a 0.0. Although I cannot know for certain what was going on in Officer Winters' head during this encounter, it seems apparent that Officer Winters decided very early in the interaction that he believed Mr. Galanakis was intoxicated, and then attempted to bend the facts to bolster his suspicion. For instance, Officer Winters characterized Mr. Galanakis' difficulty in finding his registration documents as fumbling, and what appeared to be his normal speech patterns as slurring. His desire to demonstrate that Mr. Galanakis was intoxicated even caused him to quickly pivot his allegations to drug impairment after Mr. Galanakis blew a 0.0, despite the fact that he earlier claimed to smell alcohol on Mr. Galanakis. Likewise, although I'm not an expert at field sobriety testing, Mr. Galanakis Galianakis' failure to follow instructions seemed more indicative of him misunderstanding what he was supposed to do rather than being too impaired to properly perform the tests, and he did not appear to struggle with the physical aspects of the testing. While it is possible that Officer Winters was malicious in his behavior, it seems more likely that Officer Winters was not aware that he was misconstruing evidence based on his belief that Mr. Galianakis was intoxicated and considered himself to be acting to protect the community from an intoxicated driver. This encounter demonstrates the importance of officers conducting neutral and unbiased investigations that make conclusions based on the facts uncovered, rather than trying to make the facts fit a predetermined judgment. Mr. Galianakis gets a B for maintaining a calm demeanor throughout the encounter, sharing his experience with the public after his arrest, and taking swift and appropriate legal action against the officers involved. While he did insult and antagonize the officers at several points, he mostly remained respectful and always stayed within his First Amendment rights to express dissent to the officers' actions. That being said, Mr. Galianakis' interests would likely have been better served by refusing to submit to field sobriety testing or a PBT, as is his legal right to do so. While I understand Mr. Galianakis' instinct to want to prove his innocence, the more information an individual provides, the more likely they are to incriminate themselves in the eyes of an investigating officer, particularly through highly subjective assessments such as field sobriety tests. Although it is still possible that Officer Winters would have arrested him for DUI, Mr. Galianakis would have had a much stronger argument that the arrest was not supported by probable cause if he had refused to participate in testing. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out my second channel for even more police interaction content.